Well, hello, drivers. This is Big Ed with Big Ed's Trucking News out here in the great state of Georgia. And if any of you drivers was down around Savannah, let's see when it was at yesterday or day before yesterday, I believe, they had a blitz down there in Savannah, close to the container yards, where 16 and 95 cross, not too far. But you can understand why they would have one of these blitzes in that area. Due to the fact that how many of you drivers out there have seen container haulers that you basically look at that truck and you go, how in the world does that thing stay on the road? I've seen some of these trucks out here in California or out here in Georgia that if they were running in California, they'd be under the jail with some of that equipment. But it says right here, it says they had a CMB blitz. It says, Savannah resulted in more than 300 inspections, dozens of out-of-service orders. Ain't that just special? It says last week a major CMB blitz in Savannah, Georgia resulted in 76 vehicles and drivers being placed out of service. I'm not going to go too into depth here, but it says here, 52 vehicles and 24 drivers were issued out-of-service orders for critical violations. Cell phone usage, there was 12 taken out of service. Improper lane usage, 32. Following too closely, 9. Guys, just get off their butt and put the cell phones down. All right? And then play, you don't have to weave in and out of traffic. Oh, by the way, there was 1 DUI. And 35 seatbelt violations. Gentlemen, put the seatbelt on. It's the law, okay? Just put the seatbelt on. It's not that difficult. There was a driver they found dead in his cab where they literally sent a hazmat team out there in a grocery store parking lot. Let's see here. Authorities in Arkansas responded to a deceased driver in a semi-truck in a grocery store parking lot on November 20th in Mansfield, Arkansas. The driver had requested a welfare check, or the driver's company had requested a welfare check and told authorities that the driver had recently been out of the country and possibly had an illness. Now, what I read also in this article was that this man had actually stopped in the hospital like the day before. Now, why in the world didn't the hospital actually catch what was going on? And this guy had recently, like they said, had been out of the country. And they found him dead in his cab. Probably deceased on Friday. I don't know, it's just sad. It says Travis Cooper, Sebastian County Emergency Management Officer, reported that the truck driver stopped at the hospital in Oklahoma for treatment of a possible illness. Cooper said the truck driver was in Mansfield to pick up a load of lumber but never arrived at the facility. Now let me tell you something. When he stopped in Oklahoma, why in the world would they send a hazmat team to do a welfare check unless there was something they knew? There's something not being told in this story. But that's just a conspiracy in me, conspiracy theorist in me. But anyway, I just thought I'd pass that little story along. Here we go. Founder of trucking company H.O. Wolding passes away at 111 years old. This man started that company in 1935. To give myself a little perspective on that, my father was born in 1935. This guy started the company in 1935 and just passed away. 111 years old. Man, I'll tell you what, you got to give that guy some kudos. Well, we're going to go, and now I'm going to touch on wintertime driving. I know that in one of my videos before I gave you a tip, don't let your fuel tanks get down. But this here came from heavy duty trucking. Heavy duty trucking had these 5 ways truck drivers can prevent cold weather calamity. Now, most of these things I've always done. It says winter can be very unforgiving. Trust me. Nothing I hate worse than the frickin' cold. One of these recommendations I gave you today. Keep your fuel tanks full. Absolutely. It says right here, keep emergency rations in the cab. You ever seen that stuff like 4 Patriots? You know, not only did I used to keep emergency rations in the truck, enough that would last. When we left out, when my wife, rest her soul, when we left and went out, there was enough food in there for at least 10 days. Now, I'm not saying you got to keep food in there for 10 days, but I had enough water in there for at least 5 days and enough food for 10 days. I used to carry one of the little tiny portable solar generators that you can get from My Patriot Supply. And I'm not banging their company, or I'm not promoting their company, but I used to buy stuff from them. And their dehydrated food and everything else I used to keep in the truck, along with our regular meals. We carried at least 5 days worth of rations, but we also had another 5 days of emergency food that we just kept under the bunk. It was freeze-dried food. Always keep some food in your truck and water. It says right here, prepare to stay warm. A winter survival kit is a must for any driver on an irregular route, and you don't know what you're going to come up down next. And that is a fact, people. It says good winter coats, mitts, and a hat for at the very least. Here's another thing. I used to carry 2 pairs of thermal underwear. It says a pair of thermal underwear and several t-shirts you can layer on. Several pairs of heavy socks. You know, I got a pair of socks that my grandfather had. And I'll tell you what, at nighttime when I'm just kicking around the house, I put those things on. And they keep my feet warm. Insulated overalls. Carhartt makes a great pair of them. And I'm not promoting Carhartt either. I'm just telling you these are things that I've used. And a good quality pair of winter boots, at the very least. It says right here, pack a winter toolkit. One of the things they're talking about, several cans of Sterno. Now, I used to carry at least 4 cans of Sterno in the truck all the time. It says used to keep food warm or candles for a good little bit of heat. You know, plug in a rechargeable flashlight. Now, I've got a flashlight that's actually a solar flashlight. That works really good. It says spare fuel filter and a filter wrench to change the fuel filter. First thing you got to do, drivers, is figure out if you actually know how to do that. So if you don't know how to change a fuel filter in the truck, you might want to get boned up on that. And always carry an extra fuel filter. In wintertime, I always carried an extra fuel filter all the time. Windshield ice scraper. It says a large bag of road salt or cat litter for traction. I remember one time there was a driver, and he had parked in a rest area. And of course, the tires were warm, melted and stuff underneath him. And the next morning when he went to go, he couldn't get moving because he was froze right to the flipping ground. And here's another thing I want to bring up. This is not even in this deal by Trucking News. When you park, after you've been through rain, after you've been snow and ice and all that kind of stuff, when you pull into a truck stop and you go to park, make sure you do not let your trailer brakes set. In other words, keep the air to your trailer, always. Because if those brakes freeze to those drums, you are going to have one hell of a time trying to get them broke loose. It's one thing with the tractor, with the drivers. When you set those brakes, when you go to take off in the morning, you can put it in interlock and rock it back and forth and bust the ice loose. But that trailer, you're going to just drag it around the parking lot and